I had been hungry for almost 2 days. My wallet was gone. My phone battery had died. I didn't know a single person in that city. Then, a little girl, no older than 8, walked up to me with a cheeseburger in her tiny hands. She smiled and asked, "Miss, have you eaten today?" I had no idea. That one small act of kindness would completely change both of our lives. If you love emotional stories filled with hope, unexpected kindness, and unforgettable endings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Now let me tell you how a little girl's kindness rescued a complete stranger. My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 22 years old. Growing up, I'd always dreamed of starting a new life. So when I received a job interview in another city, I packed my suitcase, bought a one-way bus ticket, and believed my future was finally beginning. My parents hugged me goodbye. My mother smiled. "You'll do great," I smiled back. "I'll call you as soon as I get there." I truly believed the hardest part would be the interview. I was wrong. After 6 hours on the bus, I finally arrived downtown. The city was beautiful. Tall buildings, busy sidewalks, people rushing everywhere. I felt nervous, but excited. I stopped inside a small cafe to use the restroom. When I came back, my shoulder bag was gone. At first, I thought I had left it somewhere. I searched every table, every chair, nothing. Inside that bag was everything: my wallet, my cash, my bank cards, my ID, even my phone charger. The cafe manager checked the security cameras. A man had quietly picked up my bag and walked away. The police took my report, but they were honest. "These cases are difficult. We'll call you if we find anything." Call me? My phone battery was already at 2%. I walked outside, completely lost. I tried calling my parents. The call dropped before anyone answered. Then, my phone died. Just like that, I had no money, no food, no transportation, and no way to contact anyone. Hours passed. I wandered through unfamiliar streets. The job interview, missed. The little money hidden in my suitcase. Only enough to pay for one cheap motel room. By the next morning, even that was gone. I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. At first, I ignored the hunger, but as the hours passed, my stomach hurt, my legs felt weak. People walked past me. Businessmen, students, families. Nobody noticed the young woman sitting alone on a park bench, trying not to cry. By late afternoon, the smell of burgers from a nearby restaurant filled the air. People laughed. Children carried trays of food. I looked away. Not because I wasn't hungry, because I couldn't afford even a bottle of water. I quietly whispered, "Please, I just need one good thing to happen today." That's when I heard a tiny voice beside me. "Excuse me, miss." I looked up. Standing there was a little girl wearing a yellow jacket. She couldn't have been older than 8. She held a paper bag with both hands. She smiled warmly, then asked, "Have you eaten today?" I couldn't answer, because at that moment, I realized sometimes hope doesn't arrive wearing a cape. Sometimes it arrives holding a hamburger. The little girl held out the paper bag. Inside was a warm cheeseburger. The smell alone almost made me cry. I looked at her and softly asked, "Is this for me?" She nodded with the biggest smile. "My grandma says no one should stay hungry." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. Tears filled my eyes. "I don't have any money," she giggled. "I'm not selling it. It's yours." My hands trembled as I accepted the burger. The first bite felt like the best meal I'd ever eaten. Not because it was expensive, because someone had cared enough to notice me, after almost 2 days without food. That simple burger felt priceless. While I ate, the little girl sat beside me, swinging her feet back and forth. "My name's Lily." I smiled. "I'm Elena." She tilted her head. "You've been crying." I laughed softly. "I guess I'm not very good at hiding it." She shook her head. "My grandma cries sometimes too. But she says crying isn't weakness. It's proof your heart still works." I couldn't believe those words were coming from an 8-year-old. A few minutes later, an elderly woman hurried toward us. "Lily, there you are!" The little girl jumped off the bench. "Grandma!" The woman looked relieved, then noticed me. "I'm so sorry if she bothered you." Before I could answer, Lily proudly said, "Grandma, she was hungry, so I bought her lunch." The elderly woman looked surprised. "You used your birthday money?" Lily smiled proudly. "She needed it more." I looked at the grandmother. I don't know how to thank her. The woman smiled kindly. "You already have. You accepted it." Then she quietly sat beside me. "What happened?" For the first time all day, someone genuinely wanted to know. I told her everything. The stolen bag, the missed interview, my dead phone, having nowhere to go, no money, no food, no hope. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached into her purse, pulled out a phone charger. My grandson uses the same phone. Let's see if it still has enough power. A few minutes later, my phone finally turned on. Dozens of missed calls flooded the screen, most of them from my parents. I immediately called my mother. The moment she answered, she burst into tears. "Elena, we've been so worried." I couldn't stop crying either. "I'm okay, Mom." I finally found someone kind. The grandmother smiled. "My name is Margaret. I own a small bakery 3 blocks from here." She looked at me carefully. "Until your parents can send money, you'll stay with us." I immediately shook my head. "I can't ask you to do that." She gently smiled. "You didn't ask. We offered." Lily grabbed my hand. "Please. I've always wanted a big sister." I laughed through my tears. For the first time in 2 days, I wasn't afraid anymore. Margaret's bakery wasn't large, but it felt warm. The smell of fresh bread filled every corner. That evening, she served me homemade soup, fresh rolls, apple pie. It tasted better than any restaurant meal I'd ever had. Not because of the food, because it came with kindness. The next morning, Margaret surprised me again. I called a friend. "He's the hiring manager at the company where your interview was." I looked at her in disbelief. "You did what?" She smiled. "I simply explained what happened." "He agreed to meet you tomorrow," Hope returned. For the first time since arriving in the city, I believed my future wasn't over, but I still had no idea that little Lily's kindness was about to change her life too. The next morning, I stood outside the company's headquarters. My hands were shaking, not because I was nervous, because 24 hours earlier I had been sitting on a park bench, hungry, alone, and convinced my life was over. Now, thanks to an 8-year-old girl, I had one more chance. The hiring manager, Mr. Anderson, welcomed me into his office. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry you went through that," he smiled. "Most people would have gone back home, but you stayed. That tells me a lot about your character." The interview lasted nearly an hour. We talked about my education, my experience, my dreams. When it ended, he stood up and held out his hand. "Welcome to the team, Elena," for a second. I couldn't breathe. Then tears filled my eyes. "I got the job," he laughed. "You earned it." That afternoon, the very first place I visited was Margaret's bakery. Lily ran toward me the moment she saw me. "Did you get it?" I smiled, then nodded. "I got the job." Lily jumped into the air. "I knew you would." Margaret quietly wiped away a tear. "I told you. Kindness always finds its way home." Over the next few months, life slowly became beautiful again. I rented a small apartment, started my new job, worked harder than ever before. Every weekend, I visited Margaret's bakery. Not because I had to, because it had become my second home. Lily always saved my favorite chocolate muffin, and every time I walked through the door, she hugged me like family. Almost a year passed. One Saturday morning, I walked into the bakery carrying a large envelope. Margaret looked confused. "What's this?" I smiled. "Please open it." Inside were the ownership papers to the bakery building. Margaret looked at me in complete shock. "I don't understand." I gently held her hands. "A developer offered to buy this building. I heard you were going to lose the bakery because you couldn't afford the new rent." She nodded quietly. "We were going to close next month." I smiled. "Not anymore. I bought the building." The room fell silent. "You." "What?" I nodded. "The bakery belongs to you now. You'll never have to worry about rent again." Margaret burst into tears. "No one has ever done something like this for me." I smiled. "You already did." She looked confused. "When?" "The day your granddaughter handed a hungry stranger a burger." Lily slowly walked over. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Does that mean we don't have to leave?" I knelt beside her. "No, this bakery stays, and so do your dreams." She wrapped her tiny arms around my neck. "I only bought you lunch." I laughed through my tears. "You gave me much more than lunch. You gave me hope." A few months later, our story spread across the city. A local newspaper published an article titled, "One Little Girl's Burger Changed 2 Lives." People traveled from all over just to visit Margaret's bakery. Business doubled, then tripled. Customers came not only for the fresh bread, but to meet the little girl whose kindness inspired thousands. One afternoon, a reporter asked Lily, "Why did you help a complete stranger?" She smiled the same innocent smile I had seen that day in the park. Then she answered, "Because hungry people shouldn't have to feel invisible." Those words touched millions of hearts. Today, every year on the anniversary of that day, Lily and I return to the same park bench. We each buy 2 burgers. Then we quietly look around until we find someone who needs one. Because kindness isn't measured by how much you give. It's measured by how much love you leave behind. One small burger changed my future. One little girl restored my faith in humanity. And every time someone asks me, "What was the best meal you've ever had?" I always smile. Because it wasn't just a burger. It was the moment a stranger became family. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes kindness can change the world. And always remember, you may never know how one small act of kindness can completely rewrite someone else's story. The end.